Battleground number 2 is going to be. Who's picking it? As it will be Endemic. Dreadnought for Endemic. This is one of their better Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
They're 4-1 on this Battleground. But for Simplicity, they're 3-2, so they're not too shabby at this either.
And Jay-How, though, if we're going to bring it back to how that last game ended up playing out, though, that this game on Sky Temple, you should be very concerned for Simplicity. That there are, at the last game, 1 kill into the early game over the very first shrine. First Punisher, not that successful, but that's just in general how the Punisher is going to function. That is not a flaw on the side of Simplicity, but everything past that point, a small macro lead on the side of Endemic, and then it's ring around the rosy, not being able to keep up. Sky Temple is built for, no matter how good you are at macro, that is what this is going to support. So this early game for Simplicity needs to be on point. They're going to have to clutch it out through the rest of it, but that ring around the rosy gameplay style that was already a problem on Shrines, I think is going to get drastically shown here on Sky Temple.
I mentioned the parallels between the makeups of these teams is similar.
Yeah,
but now
so is the maps.
Well, now I'm thinking, though, Endemic, they pick Infernal, disciplined, cautious approach, play the macro game. Sky Temple potentially will play the disciplined macro approach. And the one team that they handled on these maps was Team Freedom, a team that is heavy on the macro. So like, look, we can counter what you do, Team Freedom. Also, we're going to emulate what you do in our own matchup against teams that we think we could win the macro. So the parallel's there.
That is a good point. Simplicity, though, see what they make happen here in the pick bans. I feel like a lot of this is going to come down to the pick ban, too. I'm torn, Jay-How. I want to be like, stop with the Maiev priority. But that's not because of the Maiev. It's just because I know the Tyrael is going to come behind it.
It changes the team dynamic.
Yeah, the entire team seems to be very all in, and it's not K1's performance. It's not the hero's objective strength. It is purely on the every time that comes in, it seems like the thought process behind it is so committed that it actually sets back Simplicity here. So my first question is going to be, is the Maiev come in? If so, where? And do we still see that Tyrael all-in playstyle that we've gotten over the past couple weeks?
I do worry for Simplicity here. They can play Abathur compositions. They really can. But I feel like the burden to ban Abathur will likely be on them. And then if Abathur's not in the mix, give me a hosty Hanzo. It's he's super impactful. If things do get desperate, you have the Hanzo to play around the boss. And it plays to his strength that they've shown in the past has been there for them when Hosty has been on the Hanzo. So it is something to consider in the draft around that Abathur. But then there's Abathur, Medivh, Tyrande, and then there's a whole lot else that changes from then on out.
I'm not going to lie, too, on the World of Simplicity, I thought coming into this weekend, we might just see them all in Tyrande compositions, right? Like have that all-in one-shot, one-kill, because it's very much, you know, when you practice it, it's very clear-cut, and it caters to their playstyle. They love just killing things and getting stuff afterwards here. K1 Pro, even though it is more of a solo support as it currently stands-ish, depending on what teams you're looking at, but it is one of those areas where he could be the one moving over to that. But we'll see here for Simplicity. Also see if Endemic wants to let that Maiev all the way through here.
So Maiev and Abathur. And if Simplicity goes into the Maiev, you brought up this point, I think earlier this weekend or before, it's like, well, if there's an Abathur, that's one last body you can tether, so good luck chasing me down trying to get that. And so Endemic has the opportunity here to get Abathur, and we have not seen Abathur let through on this Battleground in quite some time.
And though Abathur is very successful on Sky Temple, my biggest focus early on was talking about that early game threat and pressure. It's not that Abathur's poor at that, but if he has any breaking point of this is my weakest point in a game, that very much is going to be it. So it does cater to that, hey, maybe that is a window of opportunity that we think is the only struggles we're going to have against Simplicity, and I don't want to deal with that. I can very much see Endemic thinking that here by letting it through, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to say no to Abathur in this type of situation.
Well, Dehaka was picked up, and we know Dehaka global on this map is very good. But that also kind of acts as an Abathur counter. So I think it was very important that, one, it's good on this map, but two, in case we see it picked up by Simplicity, you've got that. But the way these drafts are unfolding, I don't know if we're going to see that Abathur now.
No, I don't think so either. I think both of these teams realize that there's quite a bit going on when it comes to the weight, especially on the side of Simplicity here. And that they're wanting to stick with a little bit more of what they know rather than what might be more objective meta here. But I will say, I like Simplicity in terms of the heroes. maybe not synergistically speaking, but K1 on Maiev, King Caffeine on Emerden, Yrel played by Zuna. That's some of the better, I feel like, characters for each one of those heroes here and players.
Simplicity coming into this weekend, 14 total wins throughout all of Phase 2. But there's one hero for Simplicity, or for King Caffeine, where he's had a plus 50% win rate. That is the Murd. When Simplicity played against Tempo Storm last week, Tempo Storm banned him. Across the board said, you're not getting this hero. It's just not going to happen, or they denied it from King Caffeine. And then the Tyrael priority, as we've talked about, has seemed more surprising. It's like, Murden's there. Are you sure you don't want this hero? Because you're really good on him.
Yeah.
So now seeing him back in this role, I think does increase their odds.
Toronto with the Johanna here. Don't know if that's going to be a solo support or a double support at this point in time. Could be either.
Michael Udall was just playing support not too long ago.
Yeah. Toronto's not typically, or excuse me, Johanna, not the standard as what you would expect within the primary warrior role, but it's a nice denial opportunity in most cases, not so much within this draft. But we get ourselves the Karazim and the Li Ming on the back end for Simplicity. Having Tiger JK bring out his Karazim as this classic. I will say, Karazim, one of our better Divine Palm players, and in a Toronto meta, Divine Palm makes a bit more sense than it does in the past.
Double support, or do we get some more damage here? It will be Thrall. Likely Michael Udall's hero in that flex role. So Biggie will be in that solo support role on the Toronto.
Thrall into a Karazim is a very hard matchup for the Karazim in most cases. Not very hard, but it's post 10. Sundering really hurts. A lot of the times it's the counter initiation to your follow-up. It is your damage output. There's a lot of the playmaking you're going to have to save your team, come through clumping on top of them, and then you get the C split, and usually sets up to an easy kill here. Max that with a Starfall that I'm expecting to see landing on one side or the other here. I like the composition from Endemic, but I do think, for me, when I look at this from Simplicity, this is not them going, how do we get a well-rounded draft that synergizes? It doesn't necessarily counter synergy, but it doesn't have the well-roundedness of most comps. They legitimately went with, what can we just kill things with? Like, according to me, within my role, this is what I'm the best at, and that's what they picked across the board.
There's a lot there. There's definitely a lot there. If we see the similar type of rotations, we know some of the best macro teams can make those fancy rotations, first shrines, playing around that top camp going into the first temple phase is always difficult. You have to make sure you're able to clear that. The Johanna, Thrall, Hanzo side, when you get to level 4 with that explosive arrow, far easier to do. Having the Johanna makes that even easier. Simplicity, Yrel, pretty decent at that. Maiev, kind of decent there. But the approach on that first temple is going to be very telling, I think, in how this game could go after that first round in that top lane.
Not going to have the Force Armor at level 1 for Li Ming. Maybe a little bit more vulnerable to death there for Hosey. See how much he's able to clutch out with some of those orbs for that power hungry. As we see Cure come in with the brush stock use as early as level 1. Not going to be too big of a setback, as those offlaners are going to reside in the top lane for now.
Getting the vision there with the Owl. I don't expect too much to unfold in this early game. A camp invade, maybe a sniff out by Murden into the early part on that bot lane. I think about it as it's going to be as much as I expect, but nice tether there for K1 Pros. The heal and the stun comes out in return.
Yo, I don't know if you've noticed, but Dahaka's actually getting really bodied in that top lane for now. Very well done here by Zuna on the Yrel in that matchup. Pure have to even go back and tap. I feel like that might be an Essence problem, judging by the fact that this is the very first wave, but already starting out with a very good success.
Yeah, so one of the best things, and it was in my talk, this is exactly what you need to do to try and deal with a Yrel. When I talked to Goku, it may not be the easiest to stay in that area. Post level 7, it's easier. Yrel winding up with that hammer while you're in that wave. You have your W press. Just go ahead and burrow under. Try and dodge that if you can. And then whenever she's in your wave, try and land that drag and interrupt her abilities. So that's why you see it's... you and I talked about this on the ride home last night, is that it's not always going to be the prettiest matchup. It's not the flashiest matchup. But there is a lot of thought process going into those 1v1s.
Yeah, there are. There are a lot of thought processes that go into it. And I think, you know, if maybe somebody at home struggles to identify how big of an impact those things have, I think a lot of it, you can look at it, the rotations and beauty of rotations from other teams later on whenever you're like, wow, that was a really great rotation. More often than not, that's through the lane prep that is demanded out of those offlaners. So some of the things that you see with the transitions and such, more often than not, comes from those offlane and the impacts in small intricacies like you're talking about that they have there. Some intricacies we got to keep in mind of here on this game, though, is the fact that Simplicity opened it with the earlier night camp. Look for the three-man, excuse me, siege towards top. Mikey Dahl on Thrall looking to make his way up towards the top lane. We'll be able to help escort the Endemic night camp back. But a pretty significant amount of damage done for Simplicity considering on that top wall.
Yeah, the number one thing is always, can you do enough damage and then claim the top temple to get the first fort of the game? Because most of the experience taken out of the walls and loaded into the forts, that's the objective. That's why the top lane is so important in competitive play, and this is time. The early timing for Simplicity, all objectives start here at 3 minutes in, so they're timing this appropriately to try and get double down on this. But Simplicity so far has done a very good job defending and comes out even if not ahead on this trade, and they're going to look for more as they go in for an attack.
Yeah, big impact. Getting tethered back was a setback for a moment. Throws out the Lunar Flare, kiting away. He's going to be just fine for now. Mikey Daldo maybe not going to share the same fate. Stormbolt up in a few, but Calf and friends not too concerned knowing these shots are up. They want to make sure they get as much as they can. Zuna already starting over the middle shrine. We'll see what the 4 versus 4 can make happen here on top. Keep in mind, hold on, Tether comes through from K1. There is a brush stock over that middle shrub right now. This is a tough moment here for Simplicity. K1 trying to kite away. It's only a matter of time as the drag lands in. He's reeled back in, and Endemic find first blood.
Urel sitting on the middle, but it's up to Endemic. The main goal was to get as much damage as you can in this top lane, try and get the fort. It's unlikely that those shots can finish this early. See if they put some more attention to that top lane. Instead, they'll come down. That's already finished channeling there by Simplicity in the mid.
Normally when you see that much effort towards delaying top and that much effort towards making sure they get all the shots in mid, that is a snap rotation towards the top half to ensure that you consume a majority of those as well. But Simplicity backing out a little bit more towards the macro game. I don't know if that's going to be a big setback there, but just comparative to, again, more standardized thought process towards Sky Temple, this is a unorthodox rotation for them.
Well, I mentioned maybe some more attention towards that top lane because that top fort just sitting under 1,100 health left on that. It's still early in the game, but it's a key component for experience. You can, it's like banked experience. You know it's easy to obtain. You can force out a rotation, potentially get that going into the second shrine phase because you have the global and the night camps that will spawn again by the time you get there. So there is some plays, but sometimes we will see teams get that early and then hit that 10 spike a little earlier and force their advantages in other ways.
Mike Dahl tether, but nobody there with the follow of crowd control. Not going to be a problem here on bottom. As the Giant camp matchup, heavy victory here for Endemic on the bot lane. See if they can get any extra damage out as Calf, Shark, and above. Might have a door toss over the wall. Got to go back to mid, worried about that experience here. And now Endemic defend the Giants. This is another big win towards chip damage coming out from Endemic. Calf comes in. Stormbolt actually going to land on the Giant there.
Yeah, even defending the Giants by way of eating arcane orbs. B-Kid walking forward, making sure that it's like, hey, look, you know, we'll take this damage. Let's go. Let's get some of that damage in. So for them, continuing to control the rotations, control the advantages by way of health bars.
And this is a little bit of why I was so concerned with, I feel like, some of the Sky Temple coming out from Endemic here, and the fact that we're moving this, if you are a Simplicity fan, is that rotation. That's now the second rotation between the Knights up on top and the Giants up bottom, where they just have a little bit better understanding of getting that chip damage out, and that is what's going to put them in a position, based on that damage on top, now this damage on bottom, to get the experience lead. They don't have it yet, but if they are able to round this next corner, J-Hal, I feel like it is going to be the Simplicity just chasing Endemic over and over again. If they get this kill on Cure, though, that would be a big breaking point from them.
Looks like Simplicity might concede this bottom temple by way of getting a push top. An interesting approach here that will warrant a boss call by Endemic, and that's the part that concerns me. Is if that's not a Hanzo on the other team, I say maybe. King Capping has sniffed this out. Let's see the damage, as a Hanzo in this situation is so strong. Cure making his way in.
Brustock
We got a fight on our hands. In comes Johanna as well.
7-sided there for, oh, they have Wave of Force on their side as well. That's a lot of boss control, but Cap actually falling pretty low. Isolation already used onto K1 Pro. He's gonna go down there as the 7-sided strike is used before the fight even really happens. Dragon's Arrow lands onto the Yrel. Another kill setup. Punches coming out from Tiger
Piggy.
JK, but Biggie with those heals keeps himself alive. 3 kills picked up for Endemic and a boss behind it.
Yeah, and now this is the chance. The Shrine, the part that you were pointing out was that chip damage in the bottom lane allowed just half of that temple that was down there to go ahead and finish the chop. King Caffeine going to be interrupted as the Chain Lightning goes back. But now that just empowers the rest of this. The boss will now make its way directly there. So this Temple Dreadnought moving forward. This Temple will take down this mid fort with a little help. The top Temple, or the top fort, still banked for Endemic to take that down. And the full level lead that we see now is going to climb further and further in a very short time frame.
There you see it, almost a full level and a lap spike. Mikey Daldo running low on mana. Zuna in position to get the hammer and the rebuttal kill back. My goodness.
Nice drag there. King Caffeine forced a dwarf toss away as he was marked up. But the hammer in the middle of the 7-sided strike, you hate to see it.
Yeah, definitely a tough moment here for Simplicity. K1 Pro found a tether, but down the Yrel. Not going to go ahead and commit to anything too far. And J-How, we're here. We've seen it. The all-in off of that top off-lane pressure here versus the boss pickup and willing to contest that fight. We now see the major structure advantage, the 13 talent tier 2-level lead. And now we have to ask the same question we asked in the last game. At what point can you get the realistic fight into the future on the same talent tier? And the answer is going to be a 13 into a 15, almost 16 Endemic. And realistically, Endemic was going to cycle Shrine, so they're never going to take that. I think it's going to be a boss. You have to force the next boss in the 13-15 range. And I wish I could say boss control is even in their favor, but I don't necessarily think that's a true statement.
The Starfall is there. The Iron Skin, Tahaka can hop under if he feels that, you know, something's coming in for the knockback. So you have ways to stay on that, even the Iron Skin. And you mentioned not being able to find that fight. It's double Temple phase. They're nowhere near each other. There's no boss to force out of rotation. And with the Tahaka on the side of Endemic, it allows them to, okay, I'll sit here. That's going to be sniffed out. I'll sit here in one area. Whichever area they come to, I'll go to the other one. And so Endemic has a very easy game plan over the next few minutes that are very much in their favor.
Endemic actually even getting more aggressive on the K1 Pro up on top here. The fact that they aren't just forcing that ring, and now look at that, K1 having to use the Warden's Cage, setting up a kill. J-How, that shows the confidence here of Endemic to have that opportunity to maybe not all in and commit here, and then still willing to volunteer for the fight and get themselves 2 kills. That was, they're not done.
That was such a nice isolation. You know, I always love the small plays, Dreadnought. Right there, B-Kid, he's like, man, I know we're going to get this kill, but B-Kid's like, how about I just walk into this Warden's Cage and give me a little boost to get on top of you a little quicker. It's willingly taking that shot to get there. Very easily done.
That was a misclick.
Yeah. Yeah, R instead of B, that happens.
We didn't see that. It's okay, Tiger. Okay, I'm not kidding. One of my favorite human beings on planet Earth that I've ever gotten to play with had that same thing happen one time, and he just looked at us and he's like, guys, I'm out of judgment at a minion. It's one of the comms-wise in game when that stuff happens, man, it's tough.
Have you ever done that and just not told your teammates?
Probably in a scrim, yeah. Not in a live game. I think that would be immoral to not share that information, but that's just me.
Another nice route there. Well, you mentioned the boss play, Dreadnought. If it comes down to a boss play, this is now a win condition for the rest of the game. For Endemic, the Hanzo there gives you that race value. Nobody responded to this bot lane. The Temple prioritizes the closest lanes once it gets through those forts. The bottom Temple, therefore, focuses the bottom keep. Well, there were some Siege Giants to help confirm the rest of that.
Jow, you talked about some of the adjustments in the early game here, about how the top lane priority towards Sky Temple has been a very, very important thing as of late. One thing we also got to consider here, I don't think there's any way Simplicity can test this. I know they're fading it, but I don't think there's any way they commit to this. Warden's Cage is out.
Cage is there. But this is also a situation for Endemic. You're so far ahead structurally that you don't even have to risk this.
Dragon's Arrow.
See how much they're willing to commit. One misplay by Endemic would be a major setback. They already have one keep down. It is single temple, but they're going to have siege giants that will need to be responded to without a global. The boss spawning now. So Simplicity will have to make a decision. Do we go top? Endemic, they can take this because Simplicity's so far away in the Hanzo here. But let's say Simplicity's already here to contest. Endemic simply leashes it, waits for the temple, and then goes top. Like they can give, but why giveth when you can taketh with a Hanzo?
Oh, they're about to take more than that. They might take Cap's life if he takes that angle. Gonna sniff it out. No door toss interrupt coming through. Not enough threat. Giants, 2 catapults, Vault there. Good job from K1 Pro to stop the Lunar Flare, but the boss also kind of marching its way towards Simplicity's core. It's 12 minutes and 30 seconds in, J-How. I don't think this is too confident from Endemic because of the catapults, but this is definitely not an easy win, at least at this point.
They could just back up. Well, if they get a kill, that will make it a lot easier, and they instantly blow up Murden. There's going to be some resets on the Fan of Knives. Biggie staying alive for now. 7-sided strike being worn by several members as 2 make it 3, make it 4. And Zuna, will he make it 5? That's going to be everybody on Simplicity dropping here, as Endemic will make easy work of the rest of this core and go up 2-0.
The real MVP of that last skirmish was Cure, because he set the team up so well with that isolation. After the Maiev going in for those resets, she was very, very close to enabling Tiger to go in to dominate shot, but having the opportunity for that isolation, silencing out the Fan of Knives resets, making a very dominant win, 13 minutes in on Sky Temple.
The lone kill came at the very end there, but I'd say it's very much worth it for Endemic. Dreadnought, we've seen Infernal Shrines, we've seen Sky Temple. We know this is a style that you can play around the less macro-oriented teams. We've seen it twice now from Simplicity. Endemic very much reminded me of Team Freedom right now in the way that they're playing these first 2 games. Simplicity, you know, they find themselves down, but I think they need to pick maps.
They need to go to Battlefield of Eternity,
where you can't really avoid.
They need to team fight and have an area that when they get a team fight and they win it, the structures are going to fall whether or not you right-click them or not. Because that is what this team is able to hold their own in the best in a lot of cases here. Even though Battlefield of Eternity is a very snowball map, you could argue that could work in both cases. But that type of battleground, I feel like, is so much better for them. But they have been rather rigid, to be honest, when it comes to their map priority since HGC North America Phase 2 Part 2. And at this point, I mean, it's concerning, you know?
I can't stress the importance of how important it is for Simplicity to just pick up games. You don't even have to win series. It would be great, but you've got to win games. Right now, they find themselves down 0-2. We'll see if they can start to pick up those games. First, we're going to go to a commercial break, then we'll see if Endemic maybe can close it out here. Game number 3 on the way. We'll be right back.